Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour, episode 129. I'm here today with Arron Hook from Arron Hook. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad we managed to get this together because we've been acquainted for a little while,
Yeah.
and I've been wanting to talk to you and get to know you a little better. So hopefully today we'll have that chance to do that.
Thank you for inviting me on.
Oh, no
Uh,
problem at all. No problem at all. Just always fun finding guests for the show. But yeah, glad that we managed to get this together today.
yeah, no, I've been watching. I've don't know how long I've been subscribed to you, but it's been quite a bit, and I've watched quite a few live streams. I've enjoyed it.
Oh, thank
So,
you. I've watched a few of your videos, though
yeah,
it was sometimes kind of hard because I'll admit I've struggled with this too. Your audio is a little low sometimes on some of your videos.
yeah,
Though on your live
this,
streams, like you sound fine. I mean, it's I don't know what it is.
yeah. Do they have this when you watch some of the videos? Do they have this mic at
Mm-hmm.
all? Or was
You usually do. Yeah, I don't know.
it,
But
it's
then
just
again, I haven't watched some of your recent ones, so maybe it's different. But I don't know. But yeah.
I've just since I started my channel, I've gone through three stages when it comes to mics. There's a mic on this computer which people didn't like very much, so I got a handheld mic, and then people said that wasn't very good, so I've now got this one, and I'm just waiting for them to complain about this one, so then I can get one of those huge microphones I can stick in front of me where they'll be able to hear me, but then the complaints will all be they can't then see me.
Well, I mean, I can hear you just fine, so I'm sure it's fine. But yeah. But yeah, no. Glad to get you here. So yeah, on your channel, you do some interesting stuff. You talk about books and films and shows mostly. You cover some indie books. So I've noticed you've covered a few indie books recently, like The Black Crown, and even covered my friend Steve Stark's book. I think it's his newest one that he put out, These Violent Delights.
Yeah,
I think you've even done some streams with him, as a matter of fact, because I watched one of them the other day. Where you were talking about
yeah,
favorite
yeah,
sci-fi
yeah.
movies, I think was the one I was watching.
Yeah, I've done a review of Hot Dose of Hell, and then I've done the reviews I've done with violent ends with short story collections. I review them uh, story by story. So the violent ends in three parts. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
I've noticed you have split some of your videos into parts. I was curious about that. Like, why'd you do that? But I guess with like short story collections, I guess it makes sense. I don't know.
yeah. With short stories, it just seems a shame to give them in one review, given that unless the stories are explicitly connected, they're usually quite different. So I did that. Originally, I did that because I did a review of John Lanchester's. It came out in 2020. It was a collection of sort of weird tales, and each one
Mm.
was inspired by a different author. So the first one was, I'm definitely sure, was inspired by Robert Aikman, who wrote some weird fiction. And there was another one.
I've heard that name. I wouldn't. I won't pretend I've read him, but I've heard that name.
He's really good. He died in 1980, but he wrote these strange stories that I know Neil Gaiman was he's a big fan of them, and quite a number of the sort of authors are as well. They're very weird. There's one story which is called The Sword, and I won't spoil it, but it involves um, a sort of stage trick being done with a woman, and as the story goes on, you don't actually know what the stage trick is, even as it's being explained to you, and you're sort of left in complete sort of bemusement by the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
His stories are really sort of straightforward in their plots, but they're very interesting. They're some of them are called ghost stories, but only really two you can arguably call ghost stories. The rest are just really sort of weird, strange happenings. Have
Mm.
They don't really have a a clear explanation for what's going on.
Yeah, what I also thought was interesting about you is we were talking about this the other day on one of your streams, but you're also you would say you're politically aligned to the right, and I would also say I'm politically aligned with the right. I don't know how much our views coincide, but there's not a lot of right wing booktubers out there. Not really. There are a couple. I know a few, but you know they are few and far between.
Yeah, very much so. The only ones I know would be myself, yourself, and Nigel from Reading Ideas.
I don't think
He's
I've even heard of that guy.
a smaller British booktuber. But beyond Sales 3, there aren't too many I can think of on name. There is one American called Hanny, Read with Hanny, I think her name is, and she's very much right wing. She's very much a Trump supporter, so very unusual among booktubers. But
Yeah, or like John A. Douglas maybe, because I'm
yeah, but John, I certainly say is on the right, but with his channel, he does occasionally make sort of statements about sort of politics in media, but his isn't explicitly political. I wouldn't think.
fair enough. Yeah, I mean it's there's also Jordan from iWizard as well. So there are a couple, but I mean nothing wrong with that. I mean most of my nothing wrong with it being mainly left wing, and I've also noticed in a lot of readings I've done and authors I'm a fan of, a lot of people in the kind of arty sphere, if you will, tend to lean left. So I mean it kind of checks out.
Yeah, that's definitely true. The arts have, since roughly the beginning of the 20th century, has sort of left leaning. But I would argue that there was always sort of a sort of right leaning element there as well. So if you look at literature before the First World War, I'll use Britain as an example. You had people like Rudyard Kipling, Evelyn Waugh,
Mm-hmm.
John Buchan, D.H. Lawrence, Wyndham Lewis.
I was gonna say T.S. Eliot, or well,
Yeah.
he's American. He wasn't. I always think
Oh,
he's British, but he was American.
well, he took British citizenship, so he's technically both.
That's true.
So you had always had that sort of run sort of right, centre right, or in the case of Wyndham Lewis, close to sort of fascism in literature, but sort of the general right wing, sort of right in terms of literature, sort of declined. The only one I can think of alive today would be Frederick Forsyth, at least in Britain, and I've forgotten the name of the lady now. She did Lady I forgot the name, the one about the ghost in black or something.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of this book.
Yeah, it was adapted into a film with Daniel Radcliffe a few
Oh
years ago.
yes,
You
that's
know the one
right.
yeah.
That's right.
She's openly conservative, but beyond that, the rest are very tend sort of liberal and then to the left. They would argue that being the liberal doesn't necessarily make you left wing. It just sometimes it can make you not right wing or not left wing, depending on the person.
Sure, and I mean I mean I would call myself a classical liberal if I could put a name on it really. Um, I don't know. I mean, maybe small c conservative at best, if you will. I don't know. I don't know what to call myself. I've kind of given up on labels at this point, but um, I mean, I'm pro capitalism. That's pretty hard line belief of mine.
Yeah, it's today it's a bit difficult to sort of pin yourself down on in terms of political terminology, especially given that here in Britain, if you say you're a conservative, you do also have to sort of caveat that by saying I am not a conservative, but not a supporter of the Conservative Party.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I know. I'll be like, I generally lean right, and they'll like side eye you, like, oh, are you like a MAGA guy? And I'm like, no, 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 I don't. No, I don't fall into that. Um, yeah, I'll admit I was kind of like, okay, he's got the bearded guy on his profile pic. I don't know who that is, but I'm like, he looks a bit left wing. I don't know. Maybe that's my bias showing through. But he looks very left wing. So maybe this guy's left wing, which would have been fine. But
Actually, the profile picture is of Lord Salisbury, who was a Victorian Prime Minister.
oh, so
You,
not
you,
left wing.
no, he was very, very much right wing, almost arch reactionary. Though oddly enough, for all of it, he was a deeply anti-democratic, very reactionary, highly aristocratic, and yet he was a brilliant practitioner of parliamentary democracy. He knew how to run a political party and actually enjoyed the nuts and bolts of running a political party, despite being adamantly to his dying day opposed to democracy.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess the big beard and long hair threw me off. Yeah, no, yeah, I think it's interesting because again, there's not a lot of right-leaning people on BookTube. I mean, if they exist, they don't generally talk about it. I mean, I don't really talk about politics that much unless it's like, dealing with a book or, whatever I'm talking about. If it, has political content, I'll talk about it, but and I'm not afraid to talk about it or anything. It's just like I don't really want to deal with the hassle of going through like, no, I'm not, one of those people who is like a MAGA person. No, I'm not a selfish asshole. No, I care about people. Like, people come up with, there are the stereotypes, and I don't want to bother with explaining myself. Yeah. I mean, I will, but I don't like doing it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're the same way or not.
Initially, I was a bit worried about mentioning my politics, given that I'd been watching BookTube for quite a bit beforehand, and so I was a bit concerned about mentioning my politics because of the sort of left-leaning nature of BookTube in the main. But as I've been doing this now properly for about just over, I started in January last year, and gradually I've just been mentioning it. I've brought up more political topics, usually in concerns. Usually when I do some live streams, and my friend Stephen Stoppard, and occasionally in books. I've reviewed a couple of political histories, and I haven't in those ones. I haven't explicitly mentioned my own politics, but if you watch them, you're very clear what my politics are, and I haven't had a bad reaction. Well, that's not entirely true. I have a bad reaction to some live streams I've done where, frankly, when you watch them, I'm being remarkably mild. Whereas when I'm being a bit more controversial, shall we say, or more outspoken in my opinions, I haven't got any backlash. When I'm being,
it's interesting how that works.
yeah. There was one live stream I did with Stephen, and we covered the last general election here in Britain last July, and we made some quite sort of they're not extreme statements, but their position. If you're on the left, you'd certainly argue with them.
Yeah, sure.
And there's I have only got one comment under that. I think under that live stream, and it's one from me just correcting something I said. And yet I did a live stream with Stephen and another friend, Mitch, where we discussed the political left, and we were being very, very open about the left, and we were actually praising elements of the British left and its history. And I think I got one comment which was absolutely vile. Just when some nutcase was having a go at me, and I don't understand how they came to that, given that with all three of us who are very much on the right, we're being extremely open to the left.
Yeah. No. Luckily, I haven't gotten nasty comments based on my political beliefs, because mostly I get along with the because I mean, I always like to say if I agreed with someone 100% of the time, I'd be a little worried. But generally though I try not to be obnoxious, if you will. So
Yeah,
I think people will, I think people will be fine with you if you're, not like
yeah,
super obnoxious, about
yeah.
what
And
you
I
think
should,
or
and I
feel.
should just, oh sorry, I should just say that, that comment was from. It wasn't from another booktuber. It was just a comment from somebody.
Oh
So
no, it's yeah. No, I wouldn't think that another booktuber would do that. Well, probably not. We'll say. I'll say probably not. But yeah, no, I yeah, but no, I get along mostly. Though I've had some contrary opinions that that don't make me popular with some friends of mine. So they that's kind of have a hassle sometimes. But like a few, I have some British friends, and a few years ago they were kind of like we were kind of not really debating, but we were just kind of going back and forth because I was like they were all like, oh, Jeremy Corbyn, and I'm like, eh.
nah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
seems like a decent guy, but I don't agree with. He's kind of like Bernie Sanders. Seems like a decent guy. I just don't agree with his politics whatsoever. You know.
yeah. I'd say that Bernie Sanders is a lot more moderate than Jeremy Corbyn, and Jeremy Corbyn was a hell of a lot more unelectable than Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, he's not as he seems more articulate than Bernie's articulate. He's not like stupid or anything, but he's not as meme worthy, for lack of a better word, than at least from what I've seen about Jeremy Corbyn.
He did have the sort of air of a geography teacher, and not just by the not just the way the tweed jacket he wore. He was very, which it probably explained by the fact that he was for a short period an actual teacher. So
Yeah, I mean, I admittedly my knowledge of British politics is very little. I mean, I know that Tories are the conservatives basically, and Labour is basically like kind of like the Democratic Party, except they're a little further left than the Democratic Party in America. There's also the Liberal Party, which is kind of like moderate left, and then there's like the Nigel Farage Party. I forget their name. I think
yeah,
it's like
they're Reform UK.
yeah, Reform UK. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, Labour.
That was another one that a lot of my friends and I were kind of clashing over. I was pro Brexit, and then I was inevitably disappointed when it just turned into a cesspool of reactionaryism and racism. So that sucked. But aside from that, yeah, that was another one my friends and I kind of
Yeah,
clashed on a little bit.
I was I did vote Leave in 2016. I still think it was the right thing to do. Though I have my issues with Nigel Farage, mainly because he doesn't seem to be able to play well with other people. He starting from UKIP, even before Brexit. For those who don't know, in 2015, after the general election, he resigned from UKIP's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Then he went back, then resigned again. Had sort of arguments with people in UKIP, left, and then in 2019 founded the Brexit Party. Then founded, which then became Reform UK, and he's recently had an argument with probably the best performing MP in Reform UK, Rupert Lowe, and Rupert Lowe's now outside the party. He's for him, his political parties are the Nigel Farage show, and so anybody who happens to get a public profile, even approaching his, soon gets the elbow stage left.
Yeah. I mean, again, I haven't really paid as much attention to British politics because politics at home have been kind of a hassle, if you will.
Yeah.
No one really can. I don't know if it's as bad over there in the UK. I mean, I don't know if you guys have a Donald Trump figure over there. I mean, I guess you technically do. Boris Johnson's a character, from what I've heard. But
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if he's as bad as Donald Trump though.
Well, Boris is out, and I know at the moment some people inside the Conservative Party are thinking of bringing him back, but that's not going to happen. I think the closest to Trump would be Nigel Farage.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Purely in a sense of populism, but beyond that, British politics is British politics has pretty much been on the right since the 2008 financial crash. There is this idea that the centre ground is some fixed point, like a place on a map. But the centre ground in politics, at least in Britain, moves sometimes to the right, sometimes to the left. And it's been on the right since about 2008. And the British political parties are finally understanding that. And sort of Brexit was the first show of that. And so the current Labour government got elected with a very big landslide, but it was an example of the old saying that the government lost the election, the opposition didn't win it, and so Labour haven't been having a good time since then. It's been going from one crisis to another for them.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of. I know a lot of people didn't really like Tony Blair, even though he was Labour, and you'd think that would make him, liked among the people. I guess not. I was a little kid when he was doing his run as prime minister, so I don't know. Maybe you do.
I'm just old enough to remember when he came to power in '97. I'm not a fan, and a lot of people don't like him for various reasons. The Iraq War is one of them, because he was regarded as, he did lead the country into the war. And then there's various things like the fact that his government explicitly opened the borders. A lot of the issues in terms of migration that Britain currently is dealing with is down to the changing immigration law that took place between Blair coming to power in '97, him leaving office in 2007, and so, in fact, one of his policy advisors said the government was doing it to, quote, rub the right to nose in diversity, and so there's this sense of not only did they do this for they didn't do this necessarily for completely economic reasons, they did this for ideological reasons, and so there's a lot of sort of backlash for him due to that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I should ask, I know we were kind of, talking earlier about how we've just kind of given up on labels, but how would you describe yourself? Would you say you're do you lean like Tory, or are you just kind of floating in the wind a little bit, or what would you say? Who would you vote for if we were in an ideal world? Who would you vote for? And you were voting for people that you actually believed would do something.
Well, actually, the people I'd vote in the past, since I first voted in the 2010 general election, and from then up until the last general election, well, actually 2019, I voted Tory, and then my disillusionment with the Tory party was such that at the last general election I voted for Reform. But at the moment, I'd happily vote for Reform, or there's a small sort of social democratic party, which is sort of economically left wing but culturally right wing, as it were. It's socially conservative and culturally conservative. So I could vote for them. Though I should say for both Reform and the SDP, there's bits about them that I don't agree with. But either of those coming to power, I could happily support, because overall, what they want to do, I agree with.
Mm-hmm. So would you say you're more fiscally conservative, or more or culturally, or both, or what would you what would your ideal world look like, I guess is a good way to ask. That's probably a deep question. I'm sorry.
No. I would say I am.
That was a deeper question than I intended, but
That's right. I'd say I'm certainly culturally conservative and socially conservative to a degree, though I do sort of have sort of libertarian elements. So, for example, I have no problem whatsoever with the legalization of drugs, for example. I've I've held that opinion for years. But on other issues, for example, I am not a fan of abortion, and having grown up in a family where my parents divorced when I was young, I have very strong opinions on the divorce laws,
Mm-hmm.
and in that way, I'd certainly be socially conservative, and I would like the immigration laws in Britain to be tightened up, and
Mm.
I and this one is uniquely British. I am, when it comes to the British Constitution, an arch reactionary. As far as I'm concerned, I want, if in my perfect world, I would reverse all the constitutional quote unquote reforms that I regard as vandalism to the British Constitution, going back to and including the Parliament Act 1911.
So are you pro monarchy? Is that what you're telling me, or are you
Oh yes,
would you not go that far?
oh you know I'm pretty much a monarchist. Yes, yeah.
You're like, bring the king back, baby. Yeah.
Well, I'm not quite an absolute monarchist, but I'm certainly would like the king to have a farm to essentially
So you
be.
would like the king to take like an active role and not like a not as he's not as much a figurehead as he is nowadays in England,
Yeah, pretty
where
much.
it's basically just a democracy in all but name.
Well, no, I'd like Britain to be. I'd like the sort of role of the monarchy to be similar to the way it was during the reign of George V during the interwar period, where you did have a democratic government.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but where he was far more involved in politics, in a very much a non-partisan role, but being an active constitutional monarch, as opposed to the present king and his mother, who were very much. Though I have a great deal of admiration for the late Queen, they were very much
Not a fan of
inactive.
King Charles.
I find him. I find some of his stuff, especially stuff about architecture, interesting, and he has elements of conservatism that he is definitely supportive of. Like, for example, elements of supporting farming, which I'm a big fan of. But other stuff
I have a
like
lot of friends who don't like him at all. Just hate his guts, which I think is
oh,
hilarious. You know.
I, I don't hate his guts. I disagree with some things he believes in.
Fair enough.
For example, he said, for example, he as at previous point said he wants to change. There's in his sort of oath that he took at his coronation.
Mm-hmm.
He's decided as defender of the faith, and he has previously said he wanted to change that to defenders of the faith, which it's. I don't like that mainly because that particular title was given to Henry VIII before he broke with Rome by the Pope. It's an explicitly Christian and now Anglican, but originally Roman Catholic oath, and to change that would just be wrong in my view. And so it's that sort of thing I'm not a fan of him for.
I see. Okay, all right. I hear you. I do sympathize with your opinions about abortion because it's like on the one hand, like if someone got raped, I'd be like, okay,
Yeah,
I get that. I'm not gonna, or if there's like something wrong that'll affect
yeah,
the mom or something like that. That's understandable. And it's kind of the same way I feel why I think gun control would be a terrible idea is because once you get rid of them, there's nobody to regulate it, and when there's nobody to regulate it, bad things
yeah,
happen. As
yeah,
we've seen, and that's what's happened in my country. And then Democrats are like, oh, we should cut back on guns. The cognitive dissonance, I'll never understand that. But anyway, but yeah, I agree with you though. I generally, as a moral rule, I generally find it objectionable. I'm pretty
yeah,
hard line about it.
yeah. I mean,
Again, I'm not very popular with my friends. I mean, they still like me, but
yeah,
we don't talk politics very much.
yeah, with abortion, no, I'm very much of the view, as you said, that I would have exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother being in danger. Everything else beyond that, in my view, should not be allowed. But those should be the exceptions
Uh-huh.
because those are obviously cases where, as horrible as abortion is, you can see there's a necessary reason for that to be an option for the women in question.
Yeah, it's just kind of, you know what, I won't say too much because again, I'm not a woman. I don't understand how that stuff works. Which, some people are probably gonna be like, "Wow, Britton, that's profound." There, you're really onto something. You're not a woman. That's crazy. Would never have suspected. But yeah, I don't approve of it morally, is what I'll say, and I'll stick it at that as a rule.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not unbending about it. Which I think is kind of a problem nowadays. I'm like, if you want to, I've realized in my research into political philosophy and talking with people and getting to understand how all this stuff works. If a democracy is going to work, you're going to have to compromise a little bit, and we've gotten really bad at that.
yeah.
And look,
I think
I'm not saying one side is worse than the other. I'm just saying that's how it's gone recently. We're just kind of where we want it all the way or nothing. And I'm like, that's not good,
yeah.
It makes me feel a bit unmoored because, you get accused by people on the right of being left when you disagree with their ideas, and then, vice versa.
Yeah. I would say that obviously compromise is so central to politics. There are some issues where they simply can't be compromised. I would say
Well,
abortion is
sure.
obviously one of
Yeah, I'm
them.
not saying you should compromise
Yeah.
like all the time. I'm just, I'm
Oh,
saying that like
yeah.
I mean, there are some issues like that you probably shouldn't compromise on, but um generally as a rule there's like, okay, we can have most of what we want, but we're not going to have like everything. So,
Yeah.
you can have some stuff that you want, we'll have stuff that we want, and we'll be fine. Like that's how it should work as
Yeah.
far as I'm, aware anyway. I'm sure there's, I might get some comments from people going like, "No, don't work like that," which
Oh,
bring it on.
um, when I mentioned compromise, that you can't compromise, I wasn't meaning that everybody should compromise. Shouldn't. I meant that with abortion and the death penalty,
Oh,
there are
yeah.
issues that not that people should compromise or shouldn't compromise on, but people that they're not debatable issues. If you understand what I mean, you're either on one side or the other, and that means that compromise with those isn't necessarily possible.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there are some issues that, it's kind of hard to be moderate on. Like, I find gay marriage is one thing. It is one of those where, like, for the most part, like, if I describe my ideal society, it's where people generally are allowed to live their lives as they see fit. I'm generally pretty libertarian when it comes to that stuff. Um, I do think we should be principled. No, I'm not saying we should be like, hedonistic or whatever. I mean, if you want to do that, I mean, whatever. But I would prefer a society where people were principled. So I guess I am a little conservative in that way. But generally, I'm like, look, if you're like gay or black or, whatever, live your lives, do your thing, you know? I don't know how else to describe it. Just, I know it's probably more complicated than that for some people, but I like to think it's cut and dry. I'm like, I generally think of it like this. I'm like, guys, if we stop like arguing over things like this, we would probably be in a better world than where we're at right now. I don't know how you feel about stuff like gay marriage or whatever, but
I always in Britain.
I don't know
I'm
what it's like over there in the UK. I'm only speaking from an American
Yeah.
context here.
I mean, in Britain, the gay marriage debate was reasonably actually very short, and there was some opposition to it, but it came in. My main problem with the gay marriage debate was that if you made it legal at some point, because we have the Anglican Church being the established church, a government in the future, and I still think this is a definite possibility, especially given the current Labour government. they will use the executive power of the government to force the Anglican Church to accept gay marriage, where the Anglican Church doesn't currently. And
Yeah, I mean
I,
that's I know that is a concern with I do also believe in religious freedom, and that's a thing that can get complicated. Like, should a church have a right to not, you know, have gay marriage because they find that objectionable for whatever reason? Now, do I think that's an inherently homophobic thing? No. I don't think the government, but I do agree with you. I don't think the government should like get involved in that kind of thing. Plus, there's
yeah.
plenty of like liberal Christian churches too that would probably be fine with, you know.
Oh, here in Britain, I know the Methodists were fully in favour of doing it. And my view was that the law should be written, and it's not written this way, but it should be rewritten to make it explicitly clear that gay marriage is something that is civil, that you have civil gay marriages, and that if particular churches want to do gay marriage, they should be allowed to, but churches that don't want to should not have to. And the law in Britain is, to my mind, a bit is open to abuse
Mm,
that way. And we saw it with, I know you probably I know cases like this in the United States where there was a Christian baker in Belfast
mm,
that was for that a gay couple went to them to have uh, they were having a wedding, and they were being full they wanted their cake, a wedding cake done, and the law and this gay the baker refused,
mm-hmm.
and then the gay couple took them to court, and it took them to the UK Supreme Court for the law to be interpreted properly, saying that the Equality Act, saying that they couldn't be forced to make that to put that on the cake,
Mm-hmm.
and the Gay Marriage Act 2013 is written in a similar sort of vague way that it will take, if that ever does happen, it would take a huge legal fight against the government to get some clarity get some clarity in the law as it currently exists.
Yeah, it's
Which
not one of those cases where I mean, I'm sure there's like emotional reasons or whatever for, this kind of stuff, but I'm like, if we
yeah,
acted logically more often, then like several of these like hassles probably wouldn't happen.
yeah,
A controversial statement, perhaps, but to me that seems, pretty sensible. I don't know what you think about that.
yeah. No, with that the bakery case, if people thought about it logically, they would have
They would have just gone
they would
somewhere
have
else,
seen.
and they probably would have been like,
Yeah,
fine, yeah, we'll do it.
yeah. Well, actually, just in the case of when they took them to court, if the gay couple had thought about it properly, they would have worked out what they're actually doing through their legal case is forcing the bakery to write something forcing them to write something, as
Yeah,
opposed to, yeah,
yeah,
in
yeah.
the
That
same,
as well. I mean, yeah, I
yeah,
get that. I mean, I don't know. It's like I don't really think it's that big of a deal at the end of the day. It's like, whatever. But look, I get people feel strongly about this stuff. So I mean,
yeah,
I'm not, I don't want to interfere in that.
yeah.
At
It's
the same
also,
time, it's tricky.
yeah, it's also a simple matter of conscience that you really don't want to open the door for the law to be used to force people to do things against their conscience,
Hmm.
because that can always backfire spectacularly.
Yeah, I think on even one of your streams, one of the people you were talking with, I'm pretty sure his profile picture was the Duke of Wellington. I could be
Oh, that
wrong
was
on
the
that.
Duke.
Or what was it the Duke of Wellington? It kind of
Yeah,
looked like him.
yes, yes, yeah, that's the Duke of Wellington. Yeah,
Interesting, interesting. I know he's a bit influential as a conservative politician, as well as the guy who beat
yeah,
Napoleon at Waterloo.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's we've had stuff like that in America too. Like there was some lady in like Kentucky who got in trouble for, or maybe it didn't get in trouble's the wrong word, but she got like blasted on social media for not she like I think she was like I think she was the lady who like would give certificates out to people or something like that. I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I know the case you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah. And like she was like no because of my beliefs and whatnot, and there was a big hassle about it, and you're just like, oh my god, like just go somewhere else. Though
yeah. I
I mean I
mean,
know it's probably not that simple, but like like just I don't know.
yeah. I mean, in that case, I do think there was a matter of. I think she was actually a public official, wasn't she, of some kind?
Yeah.
And I think in that case, if you have a moral stance against a particular issue and you're a public official, and the thing that you're opposed to is the law, the only thing you can do is resign from that
That's
position.
yeah, that's that
Because,
yeah,
yeah,
that's true point. I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think of that. I mean, I'm not saying I support what the lady did, but I mean, now if it's like a bakery, and I've heard some other, I've heard of things like that in America too. Um, um, and that's also happened. I don't know if it's gone as far as the Supreme Court, at least in America. Maybe it has. I don't know because I'm really bad at keeping up with politics nowadays. Because I'll put it this way: I got tired of politics because you just meet the worst kind of people when, or at least you often see the worst sides of people. At least in my experience, when you kind of delve into that world, I don't know if it's been that way for you,
uh,
but I'm just like I can't do this anymore. I want to talk about stuff. I mean, I enjoy talking about political philosophy, but often it just turns into yelling matches, and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's, like, look, I'm all about sticking to what I believe to, but like it's exhausting after a while.
you know, I've sort of waxed and waned when it comes to people in politics.
Mm-hmm.
Because after Brexit, I worked. Well, I should say, I volunteered in the office of my local MP, and I was involved in campaigning through the 2017 general election. So I got to know people that way, and they sort of turned me off to a degree to politics. But then, since COVID, I've got to know people who got me back into it, as it were. And so I've had a sort of mixture of good and bad, pretty much.
Sure. I mean, I've met I've met people. There's some of them I'm still friends with today who I met through when I was kind of traveling in circles when I was younger. But yeah, I mean, once like Trump showed up and like reactionaryism like really took a hold, that was kind of what alienated me. I don't know if you sympathize with reactionaryism or whatnot. I didn't think you did, but I wasn't sure. But
Uh, I've some sympathy, some criticism. So it depends on the particular issue.
I'm pretty like firm because I find like when you go into that us versus them dichotomy, you're playing with something very dangerous.
Mm.
And when you do that, you get that's when you get a dictatorship. That's when things really get bad.
Mm.
That's when you get something like McCarthyism or you know very extreme example, but Nazi Germany, or if you want to go on the other side, Soviet Russia, or
Mm.
revolutionary France, the
Yeah,
reign of
yeah,
terror.
yeah. Or the
Many
Cromwell thing.
instances in history.
Cromwell. Yeah,
Cromwell too. Yes, I.
yeah. It's I've noticed that when people with elements of the sort of MAGA movement, as I say, I've got some sympathy with them, but other elements I find sort of vaguely very odd. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I'm not sure a couple of weeks ago you had that business of the leaked text group about the Red Sea and the Houthis.
Oh
So you had
yeah. Uh huh.
yeah, JD Vance saying that the Suez Canal is should be a European issue, and they should be handling it. And I'm just thinking, yes, okay, I entirely agree. But in 1956, the United States made sure that didn't happen by backing the Egyptians and the Soviets at Suez against the British and the French.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why Europe has not been involved in the Suez Canal since 1956 is the United States decision. So complaining about it now is a bit like complaining after you let the horse bolt out of the stable. Things like that sort of I get deeply sort of irritated by, honestly, because it just shows that a sort of lack of historical knowledge of your own foreign policy actions.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of just that's just happened throughout history. Unfortunately, I was watching something the other day about because I like one of my other passions. I don't always indulge in it as much as I do my love of books and literature and storytelling. History. I'm quite fond of history. I like watching a lot of history YouTube, if you will. So like vlogging through history, and I don't know if you watch any of these people. I've watched like Epic History. I don't know if you've ever watched them, but they have some really great documentaries about like the Napoleonic Wars, and they had a really great one about the 1848, the Year of Revolutions.
Oh yeah,
That was a really really good one. So I've watched that. I like watching that kind of content, and there's just in the Crimean War, a lot of it happened because some of the people just did not know what they were doing and weren't aware of the history of what was going on. I'm just like, oh my god, this is happening today.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. You see, actually, a very good channel. Epic History is great. I like their videos on World War One.
Oh
Really
yeah,
good.
that too. I haven't watched that one in a while, but the World War One content is very good too.
There's a channel. There's a couple of history channels I watch. British Muzzle Loaders, who covers a lot of sort of British. He covers sort of the firearms, so rifles and sort of musket rifles the British used from essentially the 18th century up until the Second World War. But he also covers a lot of history. So he's got a series on the Zulu War. He's got a short series on the Fenian raids in the 1860s and 1870s. And actually got a short series he's done on the Battle of Inkerman in the during the Crimean War.
Mm-hmm.
So he's really good to watch. And then of course there's I forgot his name. There's obviously Lindy Page. I don't know if you ever watched his channel.
What's his name again?
Lindy Page. He does mixture of historical stuff.
I have not. I've
Fantasy.
not watched this person.
He's worth a watch. Very interesting. He's done some videos, like he did one on the Czech Legion
Mm-hmm.
when they were in Russia in when the Russian Revolution broke out, and they were prisoners of war, and they fought the way back. They fought the way east to Vladivostok to get all the way back to what then become the Czech Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this massive sort of fight against the Red Army. And it lasted for about I think it lasted almost a year. It's a really sort of legendary sort of struggle they went through. He did a video on that, which was about 2 hours long, and he did another one on the Chileans' support for the British during the Falkland War, which is not very well known, or hasn't been very well known until recently because of the Official Secrets Act.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I haven't watched this, but that might seem like something I'm interested in, because even though I generally think colonialism is a bad idea as a concept and just unethical in general, I'm quite fascinated by it at the same time. There's a lot of interesting history, and yeah. And the British Empire was a thing for a very long time, so you guys were kind of were like the ones who like really made it happen, at least in like modern times.
Yeah, with me, colonialism.
I mean, empire is not a new thing, but you guys were the most recent one.
Yeah, I mean, with colonialism, I take the view that it happens, and it falls and it sort of stands or falls on whether it's done effectively or not. So I find a lot of sort of criticisms of imperialism and colonialism to be usually from people outside of the West to be angry at Western powers because they stop them brutally oppressing a minority group, or they have a problem with it. They have a problem with, say, British imperialism, but they don't have a problem if they are, for example, Iranian, with the long history of Iranian empires or Persian empires.
Yeah, I
Or,
mean, that's just human nature. I mean, I'm not saying like I don't want to sound like I'm I don't have a lot of patience for finger pointing.
yeah,
That doesn't really help anything. I mean, I just think imperialism's bad because it's like you're forcing people to do things against their will. Which I generally think is not a good idea as a
I've got to be
concept.
honest. When it comes to imperialism, that's just honest foreign policy. It's
That
you're
yeah, that's
bringing
true.
countries.
Look, I'm not
You're,
saying America is innocent in this regard.
oh no,
I
no, no,
mean, the
oh no,
war on
no.
terror. Like,
Oh yeah, no. I, for me, it's just that when it comes to foreign policy and imperialism, I say it's less honest form of foreign policy. What you're doing there is what is morally right for your country, which is putting your interest first over that of another one. So, for example, if you have, let's say you've got there's a country in West Africa called Equatorial Guinea, and they are very rich in oil. If the British government decided to back a coup in Equatorial Guinea that gave British oil companies the chance to dominate the oil industry with a friendly government, a lot of people would call that morally wrong. But to my mind, the British government is simply doing what is in the best interest of the British government by giving them influence over that country. And people would then say, well, that's not in the interest of the Equatorial Guinean people, to which my response would be, and is it the British government's responsibility to take care of their interests, or is it the responsibility of the British government to take care of British interests? And so, yeah,
yeah. I mean, I get that. I still don't agree with imperialism, but I understand that. Yeah, I know, right? Like, it's like with Trump, like he has some good ideas. Like I'm not against the idea of, I'm not totally against him, being like, hey, these people are kind of taking advantage of us. Maybe we should, put our foot down about that. I'm like,
yeah,
yes, right. That, that, okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea. But like the way he does it, I don't agree with. Like, he's basically just
yeah,
alienating a bunch of people, and he's generally a demagogue. So I mean, I try not to use that phrase too much, but I mean, it's just you're just like, oh my god, like the idea is like I guess it's one of those, like, the idea isn't bad, but the implementation is not a good thing. I guess.
yeah. You can make that argument with the tariffs, but that's generally a good idea. Tariffs are a perfectly acceptable tool of sort of economic policy, but the way he's done it is not very good. It's not the way you'd want to go about it. Though I've got to be honest, listening to supporters of the European Union attacking Trump on free trade grounds over the tariffs is hilarious, given the EU is one of the longest running practitioners of tariffs against everybody else. It's found it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, like, I'm not saying like all of his ideas are terrible, but like
Yeah,
maybe don't alienate people in the process. And
yeah,
I don't want to go into the rabbit hole of why Trump is bad, even though he has some good ideas. But like, don't take this the wrong way. Don't take this the wrong way, audience. I'm not saying I'm like a Trump fan. I'm just saying,
yeah,
I don't, I'm trying to be balanced here as much as I can be, but it's really hard nowadays.
yeah. One thing I will say with Trump is he is not the problem. He is a symptom of the problem.
Oh, 100% agree. Yeah, I'm not saying like
Yeah,
I've been saying that for years, and like
yeah,
people are just always like shocked face. I don't know if you've ever seen that meme of SpongeBob and Patrick, and their mouths are just dropped. Like, that's what everyone does when I'm like, not everyone. There are some people I talk to who are, like, yeah, you're right, like, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, there's some of my friends who are more excitable, for lack of a better word, who are just like, no, it's Trump, rah, and I'm just like, oh my god, like, look, I get it. I don't like Trump either, but he didn't just come out of nowhere. It's not like he just showed up and was like, I'm gonna take over, and everyone's like, cool,
It's he's a product of the fact that the sort of status quo hasn't worked for quite a lot of people.
Exactly.
And he was their
yeah.
outlet.
Like, this is going to be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I understand the anger of a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump. Like, I get it. Because I have had that similar frustration. Like, the system's inefficient. A lot of these politicians don't seem like they know what they're doing. Or either that, or they don't really care to, they're not looking out for us. And that's a very logical, very reasonable concern to have. It's just this guy who clearly is shady as hell and is not someone I would, let watch my dog, much less run a country, take over, is not the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
But, people are so pissed off and desperate at this point, they don't care anymore. So, it's not.
Yeah. And there's also a matter
Then again,
of
I'm really lazy. I don't like explaining all this stuff to people. It's just like, God, like just read history. You'll get it. You'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah, and there's also the issue that the reaction to Trump has been to declare him and his supporters Nazis and fascists and all this, and then just offer more of.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, you're calling them fascists, and you're shocked that they like double down on their on their positions. Yeah. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, it's like, come on.
And also, if you actually look at
kettle,
yeah, and if you look at sort of Trump rallies, they're actually quite racially diverse. They're not just white people, and so calling a quite reasonably diverse audience Nazis is going to make you, the person saying it, look fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like I don't know how closely you follow the indie sphere, which, you know what, I guess I'll use this as a bit of a segue to, because we also like books as well,
Yeah.
But going on this kind of train we've been on, I don't know how closely you follow indie authors. I mean, I know you've covered some, we were talking about earlier, you've covered some indie books on your channel. But recently, well, not recently, this was a few months ago, but there was a guy called Devon Erikson who was kicked out of a science fiction indie, basically spiffbo for science fiction. And allegedly, I'll say allegedly, he did not know he was involved in this until he learned he was kicked out and threw a fit. And I just kind of snarked on Twitter. I was like, so for any people who are, wanting to know how to deal with people you disagree with, one, don't ban them from anything. Because it's not going to make them reflect. It's not going to make them go, I wonder what I did wrong. There are people like that out there. I mean, I'm not saying like it's impossible, but like most of the time they're going to go like, they're just biased against me. Like they're just the world's against. They're going to double down is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And people were like, yes, preach. So I was like, yes. So yeah, that was a good day. But no, yeah, that happened. I was just shaking my head because of the ineptitude that was shown by the people who ran the competition. Because look, I mean, I've read some of Devon Erikson's essays, for lack of a better word. And oh man, it is reactionary. The West is going to hell. Decline of the West nonsense. That you'll find, at least in my opinion. I don't know if you feel differently about that kind of stuff than I do, but generally I think that's nonsensical. But, I'm like, there's some stuff you could have, it's kind of like when Facebook bans somebody. Facebook is a private company. They can do whatever the hell they want to do. They're not infringing on someone's freedom of speech. Same thing here. The competition was not infringing on his freedom of speech. If they had simply just gone, hey, this guy has said some inflammatory things that we don't agree with and we don't think stands with, what we're doing, we're just going to let him go. I'm sure there would have still been some pushback, but, I would have respected them a little more. But just the sheer ineptitude that they showed look, I get it. People aren't perfect. People make mistakes, but, like, they really dropped it there. Oh, man.
Yeah, I do remember that happening. Before that, I'd never heard of Derek Erikson.
Devon Erikson, yeah. Well, that wouldn't be true. I had a friend who was like, hey, maybe you can talk with him on your podcast. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, I'd be like, I don't know. And that might turn vitriolic if, we're not careful.
Yeah, I'd never actually heard of him. And then all that sort of sprung up. I wasn't following him at the time, but I was following John A. Douglas and a couple of other people, like, Mike and Rowe at Bald and Balding, if you've heard of them.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, Mike Molman. I know him. He's a good dude.
Yeah. And they mentioned it, so I had a look at it, and as you said, they completely mishandled it. It was just
exactly. He totally mishandled it.
They went from one lunatic decision to another, and ended up creating a situation where whatever they did, they were in the wrong, regardless to whether you agree or disagree with Devon Erikson.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if it was necessary. I don't think it was malicious per se. I just think it was a trial, and I think it was an error of human judgment, if you will.
Yeah.
Like they really should have thought that through more before they did it. At least, from where I was standing.
Yeah. One thing I will say about Devon Erikson is that find a woman who's as loyal as his wife. Every single tweet, if you ever seen this on X, every tweet he puts in, his wife will reply under it, so commenting what he said, and then say, "This is Devon's book. Why don't you try reading it?" And then leave a link.
That's true. Yes, his wife helps him, from what I've heard, and apparently she's like really good at like marketing. So hey, props to both of them. They've.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of what a lot of he says is nonsense, but hey, he's managed to find a niche for himself. God bless him. I'm not gonna get in the way of that. I'll give him props where it's due, but I'm just like, oh my God, that was so bad. I haven't talked about it very much because I'm like, it's been months ago, but what a complete mismanagement by the people who were involved in that.
Yeah, and I didn't know much about sort of the awards, the indie awards. From what I can tell, that happening wasn't sort of normal. I believe the other sort of awards.
Yeah, like they put in like a rule not long before. Like again, just a complete just a complete mismanagement from everybody involved. I mean, Devon didn't really, he didn't really do anything wrong or anything. He just, he just got caught up in the whole mess.
Yeah. And I've got to say, that did surprise me because I've probably been interacting with indie authors since roughly June, July last year, and I've never had a very bad experience with them, or a sort of bad experience with sort of indie author organisations, as it were. And so when that happened, I was a bit surprised. So it does seem, looking at it, as you say, it was a complete sort of erring judgments by people who didn't quite know what they were doing. They seem to be acting more out of panic than actually thinking through what they were doing.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it was kind of, I was talking about it with some like left wing friends of mine who were like, look, what they were doing was they were kind of on the argument like what they were doing wasn't that bad. It's just how they did it was not,
Yeah,
whatever. Now, me personally, I don't really agree with removing someone from anything because again, that just makes them double down for the most part. Like 9 out of 10, that's what happens.
yeah,
But but at the same time, I'm like, if you're a company and you can do that and like you're like of legal right, like you can do that. I don't agree. I don't have to agree with it, but that's too bad for me because I don't run the damn thing.
yeah. It's with as it just seemed. As you say, it was a bad judgment on their part. Anything else?
Yeah, it was bad. It was a bad situation, and just it was really dumb. Is probably a better word. It was just like, guys, again, kind of what we were talking about earlier. If they had thought logically about the situation, if they had like put some more thought into it, this whole thing would have been avoided.
Yeah. If they just decided to let him, as you said, according to Devon Erikson, he didn't even know it was in there. So, distinct possibility he wouldn't have won, and then they could have gone afterwards and just changed the rules for next time round.
Yeah, exactly. They could have just done that. It's like I don't know. I don't run these things. I'm glad I don't run these things because, good lord, that sounds stressful. I mean, sorry, I thought you were gonna say something.
Oh no, nothing. Sorry.
I guess that does bring me a little bit like what books do you like to read? Are there particular genres that you prefer, or is it just kind of you go all over the place?
In terms of fiction, the genres I like to read are mostly sort of spy fiction and sort of historical fiction, particularly sort of military historical fiction. So the Flashman novels by George MacDonald Fraser, Sharp novels by the Sharp series, I should say, by Bernard Cornwell,
Mm.
and then in spy fiction, things like the James Bond novels, John Le Carre, Len Dayton, and then some of the old sort of pulp fiction, particularly the British pulp fiction. So John Buchan, Sapper, Dennis Wheatley, and I also like horror as well. So James Herbert, and the older the older Victorian horror, so Dracula, The Beetle by I forgot his name now. He was actually Robert Aikman's grandfather, Richard Marsh. Sorry, that's the author. And so and the ghost stories of M.R. James, which are technically not ghost stories. Most of the things in them are actually more like demons or evil spirits and ghosts.
Yeah, I've actually wanted to read the Flashman books for a long time because I've had some friends of mine who really like it, and
Yeah.
they often cite it as a great example of how to do an unsympathetic protagonist very well. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of want to see that. Yeah.
Yeah. They're also a really good example of how you can do highly entertaining but completely accurate historical fiction, because he's pretty much everything in the books in terms of historical events that take place do take place. Like this in one book called Flashman at the Charge, which is about Flashman in the Crimea.
Mhm.
Flashman's sort of attached to the War Office and is sort of running about just after the declaration of war, and he goes to the then Prime Minister's um, Prime Minister's house. It wouldn't have been Chequers, but it's somewhere in London. And he arrives, and the most of the government are asleep, having gotten drunk.
Is that actually what happened?
Yeah, yeah. And in the same novel, in the same book, there's when war's been declared. Flashman recounts how Lord John Russell, who was the Foreign Secretary at the time, was in the Reform Club with Lord Palmerston, who was Home Secretary, and Palmerston he describes Thompson getting onto the table, pulling Lord John Russell upon with him, and then shouting, "We're going to beat the Russians," which did in fact take place.
Yeah, no. I've read one of the Sharp novels, which is the first canonical one called Sharp's Tiger. I thought was
Yeah,
I read it last year. I thought it was very good. Um,
yeah,
I don't know if you've ever read like Joe Abercrombie's stuff, but there were some moments in there that reminded me a lot of his work, particularly in the First Law, which, well, aside from the Devils, that's most of what he's written. So there you go.
I've never read anything by Joe Abercrombie. I do at some point want to, but I've not got around to it. There's a lot of sort of modern fantasy I want to read, but I've not had a chance to. When it does come to fantasy, I've read mostly, roughly speaking, it's Tolkien, Lewis, some David Gemmell, Terry Pratchett, and a bit, and
Oh yeah, I
Robert.
also started Discworld this year. I read Guards
Yeah.
Guards. I don't know if you saw my conversation I had about it. We spoiled the whole
Oh,
thing, but yeah, I read Guards Guards. I had a blast with it. So
yeah. Yeah, the Discworld novels are great, especially my favourite are the More Book City Washington books.
yeah,
And
no, it's very good. I quite enjoy. Or well, again, I've been saying this a lot. I'm only going off of my only reading Guards here,
yeah,
but yeah, it's quite good. I like it a lot, and there's even some stuff about governance in there that I thought was really interesting. Because there's a character called the Patrician who
yeah,
styles himself the benevolent dictator of Ankh-Morpork. He's a lot of fun, but he has a really interesting conversation with Vimes at the end of Guards about governance and kind of how he does things and why he does what he does,
yeah.
which I thought was really fascinating. And I'm like, oh wow, this Terry Pratchett guy was really on to something here.
Yeah, is it? And but I take it you're going to read on for
Oh yeah.
the yeah,
I'm probably gonna keep going with the City Watch because I
yeah,
like it already. But I've thought about checking out like the Death books, or
yes,
maybe because my friend Josh will keep bugging me until I do it. I might just say screw it and read Color Magic and see how I fall into things. I know it's kind of divisive because it was his first one, but we'll see.
yeah. I like Colour and Magic, but it is very unlike sort of the rest of the Discworld series. That and also Light Fantastic. They're very much their own thing. I like them both, but that you'll when you get around to reading it, you'll notice the contrast between say Colour and Magic and Guards.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. I mentioned this in the video I did. I was very pleasantly surprised by the tone and atmosphere that Pratchett brings, at least in Guards. I don't know if it's the same way with all of his Discworld books, but you know, I mean, he knows how to do a cop show, so I'll give him that.
Oh, that tone in Guards is very much there in all the subsequent City Watch stories and in quite a lot of the other ones as well. And the stuff about governance that you mentioned in Guards, that's there throughout those City Watch books, and it gets more sort of mature as he goes on. And the sort of about the bit about social class as well is interesting. It's when you get to it, Snuff has a really interesting sort of development of Sam Vimes from from the way he views the upper class in Guards to the way he does in that book, and it's an interesting sort of evolution, but it's a very natural one. It's quite believable that you go from one view to the other, and
It's also funny as shit too.
yes,
One of my favorite parts is at the end, and he's like, "All right, Carrot, throw the book at him," and then he literally chucks the book at the guy, and he falls to his
yeah,
death. And I'm like, "This book is great." Like, I think though my favorite part is probably when he fends off the angry mob by pointing a dragon at him.
oh,
Basically,
yeah.
quotes Dirty Harry, and I'm like, "This is amazing. This is great."
Oh yeah, there's one scene, one of the later city watch book called Thud, where there's a fight that's about to break out in the canteen, and Vimes walks in, and Nobby Nobbs is there, and I can't remember the exact words, but he describes Nobby Nobbs' face in such a funny way as Nobby's trying to come up with a believable excuse of why the troll officer and the dwarf officer aren't about to beat the living shit out of each other.
That speaking of dwarves, that's another one of my favorite parts when Carrot walks into the bar and is like, What are you doing? Huh? We're dwarves. We're supposed to be better than this. Like your mothers would be ashamed of you, and then they just start crying. I'm like, this is great. This is so good. And like Knobs is like, okay, I guess this is just how we're doing things. I was joking with some friends the other day, and I was just like, yeah, Knobs is like that real creepy dude at work. Like he definitely does some shady things in his spare time.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, some of my favourite scenes are the ones with Nobby Nobbs and Fred Colan just walking about the city. And there's again in Thud, there's a scene where they've gone into the gallery because one of the paintings has been stolen. This is a part of the plot. I won't go into any more detail about it, but we've just got this funny thing of them, because they're obviously not the smartest men in the world, trying to sort of work out what's happened. And then you've got this the gallery owner is very, very posh, and they're finding it quite difficult to understand what
I mentioned it. I'm like, so yeah, the City Watch are either really incompetent or too drunk off their asses to do their jobs. Or both.
Yeah,
it makes sense because like everything is regulated, where they're like, okay, assassins, you deal with things in your place. Thieves, you deal with things in your place. So the City Watch is basically useless at this point, or at least where I'm at the moment. It might change. I don't know.
Oh, it does, but I do like the sort of veterinaries line that if you're going to have crime, it better be organised.
Yeah, that's great. I'm like, this is fantastic. I'll admit I don't read as much historical fiction as I should, but I mean some of my favorite books. I mean, well, I guess Heart of Darkness isn't technically historical fiction because it was contemporary to the time it was written. But
I mean, you could argue it was historical fiction being set in about 10 years before it was written, I suppose.
That's a fair point.
I mean, for example, is a World War II novel written in 1955 contemporary fiction or historical fiction?
That's a good point. Yeah. But it's. I always hear people joking, like people are saying like the 80s is historical fiction now. God, I feel old. I'm just like, yeah. I'm always kind of like, oh man, 2000 wasn't even that long ago. Like I wasn't even born yet. Damn. No, but I enjoy some I enjoy, like, I mean, I don't know if you've read Cormac McCarthy, but Blood Meridian is one of my favorite books of all time.
I'm not overly sold on Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, he is a very American writer, if you will. So
it's not so much that; it's more I find his I was trying to describe his view that punctuation is an optional extra to the English language a bit difficult to deal with.
That makes sense. Yeah, no. He's an acquired taste. This is all I'll say. I mean, I remember when I read The Road when I was a kid, and I was like, "What is this? Like, there's no who's talking." It took me a while. I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right, yeah." Now I'm used to it because I've read like most of his books now. But I mean, I just did a video like not too long ago about my 20 favorite books of all time. So yeah. I want to read more historical fiction. I'm just really bad at, really bad at getting my priorities in order. And also, I'm like, I have all these other books I want to read this year. Like, get out of here,
Yeah, I'm the same at the moment. I want to read a lot more of history that I've got, non-fiction. I've got so many sort of fiction books that I should have read last year that I've not been able to read until now, and so I'm going to try and get all the fiction ones because it's not too many of them. But
Though this upcoming month in June, I'm going to be doing June on the Range, which is like a
yeah,
thing where people read cowboy books all month. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be reading books about cowboying all month, and hopefully finishing Titus Alone or not Titus Alone, Titus Grown when I have the time.
yeah, I'm going to be doing June on the Range. But one of the things I'm going to be doing here in the UK, there's a publisher that it closed down in 2020, but from 1935 until 2020, it was called Black Horse, and it used to publish pulp Western novels, and they're about.
I was about to say I don't know if you redcoats like our cowboy stuff, but
Oh
you know.
yeah. Oh yeah, no, I'm a big fan of westerns. So these Black Horse westerns are about 160 pages long, and small sort of square things about that being that size. And so I'm going to read a couple of them.
Yeah, I just recently got the novel True Grit. I mean, I've read it before. I mean, it's actually one of my rereads, the rare reread that I'll conduct during this month.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. I have like 4 main ones I'd like to get to before the end of the month, but you know, we'll see if I get to that.
I'm going to be reading as well. There's an event that I found. Me and my friend Sean D. Standfast is another booktuber. We came up with actually called Dune in June.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, no, I read Dune in 2020, but then I got real depressed because COVID, and I stopped. I ended up finishing it later on, but I was it was not 2020 was not a fun time.
No, that and I had before last year I hadn't read Dune at all. It was something
that's interesting.
I'd been
I shouldn't say that because I didn't read it till 2020. So there you go.
I was interested in it, but I'd sort of been a bit wary of it because if you look at it, you've got all the stuff that Brian Herbert and Michael Jansen have done. Kevin Jansen have done, and they've got something like altogether now 20 odd books. I'm just thinking that's just a huge amount to read. But then I read Dune and really enjoyed it, and so this year I'm reading Dune Messiah.
There's one where he commits genocide, I think.
Yeah.
Mild spoiler, but I was told that, so probably not a big deal. I mean, that came out wrong. That didn't come out right.
There's also a question of, can you really spoil a novel that's over 60? At this point, I think over 60 years old.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, it's just kind of. I mean, I was told he kills like 1 billion people. I'm like, oh well, that's not good. Yeah. It's kind of weird. I thought Dune was really dry, so that also just felt again. It was 2020 was not a fun time. Not a good time for me to read, but I got some of it done. I read a lot of comics in that time, so that was not bad.
Yeah, I've never really been into comics myself. In terms of a lot of sort of American comics, when I was growing up, the comics I would read were these war comics called Commando. If you've ever heard of them, but I don't think they're published in the US.
I mean, the only British comic I'm familiar with is like 2000 AD. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how familiar you are with 2000 AD.
I've read some issues of it. I know that's where Judge Dredd got his start.
Yes.
But most of the stuff I read when I was a kid, and I still read them now occasionally, is these Commando comics. And essentially, the war comics, they cover stories from World War I and World War II.
You might like Garth Ennis then. He does a lot of war comics.
Yeah,
when he isn't making fun of superheroes or doing stuff like Preacher, he does war comics, and he's very good at them.
Yeah, and I know he said previously that he used to read that was some of the comics he used to read, Commando. Also, War Picture Library, which were sort of he's the contemporary of Commando from the 60s up until the 1980s. I'm going to say I only know about them because my dad and my uncle was born in the early 60s, my dad was born in 1970, and so they grew up reading Commando and War Picture Library, and so when I was at my grandmother's, with these huge piles of them there, so I just read my way through them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I admittedly my knowledge of war comics is limited, but given I have an interest in history, and I like reading about wars. Will I ever fight in one? Probably not, but I like reading about them. One day I'll get to it, but yeah, that's yeah. I know like Pat Mills of 2000 AD fame did some war comics back in the day, like
Yeah,
Charlie's War.
yeah.
I don't know if you've read those at all, but
I read it a very long time ago. I think been now over 15 years, but I remember enjoying it.
yeah, but yeah, no, yeah, it's interesting because America, we like superheroes out here, so there you go. Yeah. I mean, I did see you had like your favorite science fiction movies on. You were streaming that the other day, or this was like a month
Yeah,
ago, probably now.
and sometime I think it was mid March. So
Also,
sorry, mid
several
April.
months ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was Steve was on that one. So was John
Yes.
Davis and Sean as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do watch fair share. I was like, I think the one because I didn't watch all of it, but I did watch a part where you guys were talking about Escape to New York.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if that's even like one of Carpenter's best movies, but it's a fun one.
Yeah.
By the
I
way,
should say.
it's the thing. The Thing is his best film, like
Oh yeah,
uncontested.
I do love the thing. But I should say to people that live stream was where
Also, They
before.
Live. They Live's
Yeah.
great too.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I was going to say I do have a sort of fondness for the Fog as well. The original, not the remake.
Which one? The Fog?
Yeah, that one from
Oh,
'78.
I've
You know the
not
one
actually watched that one. I want to at some point.
that's really good. I'm fond of that one. Also, I am a fan of vampires as well.
Of vampires?
Yeah,
Oh,
just
his
you know,
movie Vampires. I thought you were just
yeah.
talking about vampires in general.
Well,
I haven't watched that one either because like I know he had like his big run in the '80s, and then like after that I kind of just like fell off. I still need to watch like Prince of Darkness and what's that other one he made that's like very Lovecraftian? I think it's like
oh,
Mountains of Madness, not Mountains of Madness, but something of
Mouth of
Madness.
I think Mouth of Madness. It's all with Sam Neill playing the private
Yes,
detective.
yes, yes, that one. Um, I need to get to those. Um, I'm quite fond of some of Sam Neill's stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people know him from like Jurassic Park. I like him a lot in this movie called The Hunt, or The Hunter with Willem Dafoe in it. He's very good in that
Mm.
movie, which I think is very underrated. But
He was there's a TV show. I think it might be on YouTube still from the '80s called Riley Ace of Spies with Sam Neill, where he plays a fictionalized version of a real bloke called Sidney Riley, who was a spy for Britain in the Edwardian era. Well, from the Edwardian era up until the Soviets caught him in 1925. It's
mm-hmm.
really entertaining. Riley was one of the people that sort of one of the influences on Ian Fleming when writing James Bond, and you can see when they made the series in the '80s, they were sort of playing on elements of Bond
Yeah,
in the
he would have
series.
been. I would have really liked to see him as Bond. I think I do recall, if I recall right, I think he actually was in the running to play Bond at one point.
Yeah, they wanted him to play it. He actually said he wouldn't do very good at this. He did do a screen test, and he did well. For some reason, they didn't take him on. I think it partly because at that point Timothy Dalton was coming up for the role,
Mm.
and they wanted Timothy Dalton back in the late '60s, early '70s when
Dalton was an underrated Bond, I
Connery.
think. I really
Oh
liked
yeah,
his Bond quite a bit.
yeah,
I mean, I like the goofy Roger Moore stuff, but I kind of liked the Like I think it's not In Living Daylights. That's the one where he takes revenge on the guy.
Oh, no,
What's the one where he takes
License,
revenge on the guy and Benicio
oh,
del Toro's in it and he lights the dude on fire for
License to Kill.
say that again.
License to Kill.
License to Kill. Yeah, that one's an underrated movie.
Yeah,
I thought.
a lot of what Dalton does in his two films is essentially what Daniel Craig did in his films. Except I'd argue that Timothy Dalton did it far better and was far
Yeah,
more
I
like
mean,
literally.
I love Casino Royale. It's one of my favorite
Yeah,
Bond movies of all time. So I mean, I like Skyfall too, but I mean, I really liked. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Casino Royale actually reminded me a lot of damn it, License to Kill because
yeah,
both had very like dark tones. Pretty close to the
yeah,
book too, from what I remember. I mean,
yeah.
they
It is. Yeah,
modernized it a bit, but pretty close to the book.
yeah. It's one of the few Bond not for one of the rare number of Bond films. Just despite how many they've done, where it is actually quite close. That it's Casino Royale, On a Majesty's Secret Service, Doctor No, From Russia with Love, and Goldfinger, and to a degree Thunderball are all very good adaptations of the novels. On a Majesty's Secret Service is arguably the most faithful. But that I think was partly down to the fact that the director Peter Hunt bought a copy of the book on to set with him every day, and so he was checking the script. I think compared to the book, so that's uh, very faithful adaptation. The only stuff that's the stuff that's not that's added to the film adds to the plot of the book really well. It's a really great adaptation. It's also a really good Bond film and a good film itself because there is that thing about you can have a good Bond film that's not necessarily a good film.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really like the Bond movies.
Yeah,
Goldfinger is probably like my favorite because it just like
yeah,
I think it has like everything. Like it has kind of the goofy, because yeah, you Brits, you love taking the piss out of stuff. Even like when you're like doing your prim and proper, Agatha Christie, you can't help but poke fun at things. Can't sincerity is you're not good at it.
actually, Goldfinger is interesting because it's the
you're not
one.
you're not very sentimental over there in the UK, are you guys?
Not really. No. No, we just see with Goldfinger, they actually improved the film improves Goldfinger's plot because in the original book, the plot is to get the gold out using trains and trucks,
Like
which would
it had the right amount of camp, but like the right amount of like, okay, this is I could take this seriously for the most part.
yeah. I think
And
of the
Sean Connery's
Connery
great.
films, yeah, I think of the Connery films, the only ones that I think go overboard and don't work well are You Only Live Twice and Diamonds Are Forever. All the other ones before that, so Doctor No through to Thunderball, do work. They have the right
Yeah, I was about to
balance.
say, what do you think of the Moore era? Because Moore had some, that was like the real campy Bond era.
I like Moore's films. In fact, one of my favourite Moore films is his first one, Live and Let Die.
Oh,
Partly because it,
yeah,
partly
that's a
because
good
it's
one.
my favourite, partly because it's an adaptation of my favourite no, my favourite Bond novel, Live and Let Die.
It was
But,
fun kind of going from Bond to like reading because I've only read a couple of Le Carre because you mentioned him earlier.
yeah,
Um, The Spy Came from the Cold. I was talking actually with a friend of mine about it a few months ago, and he was just kind of like, thought it was kind of dry, and I'm like, yeah, that's the thing I actually thought was kind of refreshing. It's like, yeah, being a spy is actually like kind of dull. Like it's kind of like pedantic. He didn't care for it, which like fine. I thought it was a really interesting choice. Like
yeah,
like George Smiley is not a sexy person by like any
no,
means. Like he's just a regular looking dude,
yeah,
regular old dude, kind of boring even I might dare
yeah.
say. And I've also read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and watched like
Yeah.
the Oldman movie, which I thought was pretty
Yeah.
good.
Have you seen the TV version from the 70s by the BBC?
I have not. Is that the one with Guinness? Because I've wanted to see that.
Yes. Yeah, you'll definitely find that out. I think that is actually free on YouTube. That is brilliant. I like the Oldman film, but the BBC version with Alec Guinness blows it out of the water. It's that thing is
Well,
brilliant.
I mean, I want to watch it. I mean, you know, if there's anyone that could like, you know, match Gary Oldman, I would think it was Alec Guinness. You know,
Yes.
no, but I don't know if you agree, but I kind of I'm really fascinated by it. Like he's more interested, or Le Carre anyway is more interested in like espionage and subterfuge and
Mm.
like there's nothing sexy about what George Smiley does, you know. Like it's very pedantic, you know.
Yeah.
Like I would probably be driven crazy if I did something like that, you know. I don't think I could do that. I'm one of those guys. I got to keep moving, you know. I got to
Yeah.
keep being stimulated somehow. I don't know if I'd have the patience to be a spy.
I think the big difference between Le Carre and Fleming is that Fleming's experience of intelligence was obviously during the Second World War, and he was
Also,
involved
Bond
in.
is an assassin. I wouldn't say he's like a
Yeah,
spy necessarily.
he,
That's
he's
that's one thing
yeah, he's
people kind of that's kind of a misconception about
yeah,
Bond. Like he's an assassin more than he's like a
yeah.
spy.
Yeah, he's very much inspired more by special operations executive during the Second World War than
Mm-hmm.
he is of post-war intelligence. Whereas the Carey, obviously, he was in both MI5 and the SIS during the 50s and 60s, and so his experience is peacetime espionage during the Cold War, and so I think that's a big difference.
I also just
I
love
think,
the Cold War. That's just a
yeah,
fascinating piece of history for me. So
yeah,
you know that you know that just kind of that
yeah,
also helps.
yeah. Oh yeah, that my one big criticism of Le Carre is that his books, with the exception of The Night Manager and Our Man in Panama, are the post Cold War novels are nowhere near as good as the stuff during the Cold War. Yeah, it's just
Cold War is supreme as far as you're
yeah,
concerned.
that's the one thing. That's a big difference between Le Carre and Len Deighton, who wrote things like The Chris File and Funeral in Berlin. He, as soon as the Berlin Wall fell, he pretty much by the mid-90s gave up writing spy fiction, and the few novels he wrote after the end of the Cold War were sort of wrapping up a storyline for his Bernard Sampson novels, which are which are spy novels set during the 80s, and so he sort of understood that the sort of Cold War, sort of free sort of creative element of the Cold War was now gone, and spy fiction for him wouldn't have been wasn't as good, and so he hasn't really written. He's only written a couple of non histories since then.
Yeah.
He's.
Oh, sorry.
I know. Just wondered, have you ever read Glenn Dayton?
I have not. I'm really bad with like keeping up with spy fiction. I was gonna ask though, have you read Graham Greene? Because
Yes.
I've only read Brighton Rock from him, but I know that he was also a part of. I don't know if he was a part of MI5 or
Oh no, he was SAS. He was stationed in. I think he was
he
actually
was a
stationed
part
in
of
West.
all that.
Yeah, he was close to Kim Philby, one of the Cambridge spies, and he was himself suspected of being involved in Soviet being a mole at some point. He wasn't himself, but that was all one of the suspicions in 50s and 60s after McLean and Burgess, and then Philby went, and so almost everybody who was close to them was suspected at one point or another of being a Soviet mole.
I did not know that. I mean, I would like to read more of Graham Greene. I've only read Brighton Rock from him because
Yeah,
I really like crime novels, and it's one of my favorites. I quite enjoy, and also kind of the. Well, again, I made my favorite books of all time video recently, so I kind of talked about it a little bit. But I'm kind of fascinated by the character of Pinky Brown, where he's kind of this really disgusting, vile, evil person, but he kind of knows it on some level and is kind of, I don't know if he's ashamed of it, but he's kind of disgusted with it. Like it doesn't bring him any like it doesn't make him any happy. It doesn't make him happy at all.
Yeah. Have you seen the film with Richard Attenborough?
Long time ago, yeah. Not long after I read the book, but yeah, it's a good one. It's a good adaptation. I also watched the newer one, which I thought was fine, but you know,
Yeah.
but it felt more
I've,
like a standard crime movie where you
yeah.
know he's like, oh, I'm gonna do. They made. I felt the newer version made Pinky Brown a less interesting character.
Mm. Yeah, I've got to say I've not seen the new one. I've seen clips of it, but I've not been interested in watching it. Whereas the Carol Reed, I think it is Carol Reed, who's the director of the one in the 40s, Richard Attenborough. That one I really did enjoy.
Yeah, I want to read more of his books. He did do some spy novels, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, yeah, he did The Third Man, which got adapted with really good film if you've not seen that. Where it's technically not a spy novel, but it is a sort of Cold War novel set in Vienna during the sort of when it was under sort of occupation of the British, the Americans, the Soviets, and the French.
Mm-hmm.
Got if you've not seen the film, I really recommend it. It's really really good.
Which one is
Really,
this?
The Third Man.
Oh, the Third
That's
Man.
that's by Carol Reed.
Yeah, I've
And
heard of this. I want to watch that. That's the one with Orson Welles, right?
yes, well, he has a wonderful speech on the big wheel
Oh,
in
yeah.
Vienna, and he's talking about the people down below and what would happen if one of them just dropped dead. It's really good. And there's also the very famous scene where Orson Welles' character is Harry Lime, and he's presumed dead. And then Jodie Cotton's character sees his figure following him, so he chases him, and then this figure is in a doorway. A window opens in a house opposite, and you just see Orson Welles there, and it's a magnificent shock for Jodie Cotton's character, because he presumed Harry Lime has been dead, and it works really well.
I do want to watch it at some point. It's one of those classic films I haven't watched. So yeah, there's a lot of old movies I haven't watched that I need to before I leave this mortal coil. I mean, I have time, hopefully. I don't plan
I
on
mean,
dying
yeah,
anytime soon.
I think at 23, you safe to say that you've got quite a bit of time.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, you never know. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm either thinking of doing like The Quiet American or something like that. I don't know if you know, maybe somewhere from Graham Greene. But I haven't read that other guy you were telling me about who wrote Lintway. Did you say his name was?
Oh, Len Dayton.
Len Dayton. That's right. Here, I'll
Yeah,
look him up.
he wrote the Ipcris File, which is really good. That one's it's there's a film adaptation with Michael Caine in the 60s, which is good, but I would advise you to read the book first before watching the film,
Oh
because the
wow, he's
film is a
still
lot
alive.
more.
He is 96. He is still kicking.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he's currently living in I think Portugal somewhere. He's. But I would just, as I say, read the Ipcris File book first before you watch the film, because the film is a lot more straightforward in its plot. The novel is a very much more complicated, somewhat weird, but very entertaining Cold War spy novel, whereas the film is a more straightforward Cold War thriller, if that makes sense.
Oh, I didn't know Somerset Maugham. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I didn't know he wrote espionage books.
Oh yeah, he wrote. Oh yes, Ashenden. That's a really good collection of short stories. He was himself a spy during the First World War.
Man,
He
there's
was,
so many spy
yeah.
spy writers writers who worked in espionage. What's going on here? Why are so many? I guess MI5 really mistreats their workers or something like that. They keep writing about MI5.
I mean, in many cases, it was just that they were deployed during the two World Wars. So when Compton Mackenzie, who wrote Whiskey Galore and Monarch of the Glen, he ended up as a Scottish nationalist. But he, during both World Wars, worked for British intelligence. He wrote a really good memoir of his time called, I think it's called The British Agent. when he was serving in Greece in 1916-1917, involved in operations trying to convince the Greeks to enter the First World War. That's really good. And also, there was, I forgot his name now. He went on.
Is it Bruce Lockhart? Is that the guy's name?
Yeah, oh no, he was the one with Sidney Riley. He wrote he wrote a biography. I think I'm not sure it was him or his son wrote a biography of Riley, and also Riley's wife, I think, produced an account called about Riley's life in the 20s, which is really good as well. If you ever want to read a non-fiction account of an intelligence officer, there's a biography called M, which is about the counter-intelligence chief of MI5 during the Second World War, called Maxwell Knight, who was the man who Ian Fleming based M on.
Mm-hmm.
And fascinating figure, ran sort of agents out of his flat in Dolphins in Kensington in London, and he was also a naturalist, and he presented radio programs for the BBC about wildlife. And he, amongst his pets he owned, was an African grey parrot, and I think it was a black bear, which used to live in his flat with him, and he used to take it walking around the parks of London on a lead. Yeah.
All right.
So you can just imagine the scene: him sat in his flat with an agent who's working in the Communist
Just walking
Party.
Just walking his bear around.
Yeah, on a lead, and he sometimes take the parrot on his shoulder.
Really getting the assignment of subterfuge there. Really great.
The
great
thing
job.
the thing is, there's this scene. I think there's a scene in the biography where he describes him meeting with one of his agents in the flats. This is an agent, I think, working inside the Communist Party of Great Britain, and the agent's telling him, giving him his report, and the bear is asleep behind Maxwell Knight, groaning in his sleep as this bloke's giving his account to Maxwell Knight of what's going on in the Communist Party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really bad with like spy novels or espionage novels. Like the only ones I'm really familiar with are James Bond, also the Bourne books. Though I think the movies are actually better. I hate to kind of say that. I don't know if you've seen the Bourne trilogy.
Yeah, I've seen the films and I've read the books. I think you're right. The films are better. At least the trilogy. Of course, I've not read the continuation novels.
Yeah, I hate when they do that. They've done that with. Excuse me. Going off of 6 hours of sleep here. Oh my god, they did that with. They even did that with Le Carre. I hate when they do that. Like they did that with like Crichton and like Robert Ludlum. Like just let him die, man.
Yeah.
Though I guess in Le Carre's case, his son is writing it, so it's not that bad. It still annoys me a bit.
So they have done that with the Bond novels, but I would say that with the Bond novels, they've been reasonably successful. Kingsley Amis wrote the first continuation Bond novel, Colonel's Son.
Was it good?
Yeah, it's actually quite good. Yeah, he's able to sort of get Fleming's style down reasonably well. One of the strangest continuation novels, purely because it's a novelization, is the novelization of The Spy Who Loved Me by Christopher Wood, I think it was, and it's really well done. But it's strange because it's essentially the plot of the film, The Spy Who Loved Me, but where Christopher Wood has written the book, the novelisation, in the style of Fleming. And so it's not Roger Moore being Bond in the book. It's Ian Fleming's James Bond as a Bond in the book. And that probably sounds strange, but it works really well. That is the most Fleming-like of the continuation novels.
Yeah, I'll have to pick that one up.
Yeah.
I
think they did a novelisation of Moonraker as well. But he also, I think Christopher Wood also did that. But that, from what I can remember, is pretty much just the film in novel form. So he didn't do anything with that.
Yeah, I'm not really fond of novelizations either, but there are some that have really surprised me. Like I read the Revenge of the Sith novelization. Really good. Like just I mean I don't know if you're into Star Wars much at all, but like the novelization of Revenge of the Sith is fantastic. It's a fantastic book.
I've read
way better than it had any right being. I'll put it that way.
I've read one or two of the sort of expanded universe novels, but I've never read any of the novelizations. It's not because I've got anything against them. I don't think I've ever seen them anywhere for sale.
Like generally, I avoid them, but man, like the Revenge of the Sith one, I thought was really freaking good. You know.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of spy stuff, I haven't watched all of it, but have you seen The Prisoner?
Yes. Yeah.
The TV show. I was watching it because it's on Tubi, or at least it was when I was watching it. I need to, finish it. But man, that show really held up. I thought when I was watching it, because I was like, man, like you could easily make that today and it would work.
Yeah, I think partly because it's though it's obviously made during the Cold War and the references to the Cold War, it's sort of outside time, so it doesn't age in a way that other programs are set specifically in their era. In their era, I should say, not necessarily that era. But yeah, it's really good. It's a bit strange in parts, but very entertaining.
Yeah, like the beach balls bringing Patrick McNaughton back from, trying to escape.
Yeah.
Always thought that was weird. And it's kind of meant to be. Like, it's not like a... I mean, again, the Brits like the poke and prod, Playing things straight is not something they like to do sometimes.
Yeah, interestingly, the bloke who wrote that with McGowan,
that's his name. I knew it was like Mick something. He was Richard the Lion, or not Richard the Lionheart. He was Longshanks in Braveheart as well.
Interesting. He's actually American.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was born in New York. His parents were Irish. He was born in New York, and then they came. I think it was his parents. They came to.
That's England. Weird. I mean, The Prisoner felt really British to me, and how it kind of.
Well, he did grow up in Britain, I think, from when he was relatively young. But he has always worked ever since he became an actor in the late 40s, early 50s. He's worked on both sides of the Atlantic.
Interesting. I mean, I knew him from like Escape from Alcatraz and Braveheart, because played Longshanks in that movie. But no, I mean, I thought he was British. It felt like a British, kind of thing.
Yeah. I
don't know why that is, but
I think that's partly because the bloke he sort of produced it with and wrote it was George Markham was his name, who wrote all sorts of spy fiction and sort of thrillers in British TV in the 60s and 70s, up to the 80s. Who, have you ever heard of Callan? It's got Edward Woodward in.
No, I'm not.
That's a spy series from the late 60s and 70s, really well worth watching.
I have heard of stuff like The Avengers and
he wrote for that as well.
What's that other British spy show that's really old? I thought there was another one.
The Professionals?
Maybe that one. Probably. Yeah. I don't know.
George Markham wrote for both The Avengers and The Professionals. And he wrote for a thing called Special Branch, which is about the part of the British police force that deal with espionage. And so he was always suspected of being involved in British intelligence himself, sometime in the 50s.
Yeah, I I was always more of a fan of like crime books than like spy stuff, but they do sometimes interlap. So
Yeah.
excuse me.
Are you a fan of James Ellroy?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping to read The Big Nowhere
Yeah.
sometime during the summer. I love L.A. Confidential. I think that's just
Mm.
one of the best crime novels ever.
And my favourite is the US Underworld trilogy.
Yeah, I'm thinking of. I'm trying not to think too hard about what I'm reading next year because we're only in the middle of this one. But
Yeah.
I am thinking of reading the trilogy, the Underworld trilogy next year.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. I've heard they can be a bit dense, so we'll see.
I've got to say, when I read them, I found them quite readable. They are written obviously in a very telegraph style, but I found that one should
Then again,
go into.
I know Elroy can be very staccato.
I've got to say, I found once you've got into it, say a couple of chapters, you're just in the rhythm of it, and then you
I
fight
heard
through them.
like he went to the door, he opened it, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how he writes, Which like that's fine. I'm not saying like that's wrong or anything. It's just like, it's an acquired. I mean, I like L.A. Confidential, so I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, I heard like American Tabloid's one of his best books.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That whole he gets the era of American politics and sort of society down to a sort of,
And again,
he
Cold
really
War,
did.
so I'm like I'm down
Yeah.
for that.
And sort of that you really just get that sort of interplay between the CIA, the FBI, the Cubans, and all the sort of political stuff with the Kennedys really well.
Yeah, I know he doesn't have. I've heard he doesn't have a very positive view of the Kennedys, and at least in American Tabloid. I don't know what he thinks of them in real life.
JFK is presented as quite likable. He doesn't think much of Joseph P. Kennedy, Kennedy's father, in the book.
Yeah, he wasn't a very nice person,
No,
Joseph Kennedy.
especially not what he did to his daughter.
Yeah, no. There is also my most hated historical figure, which is J. Edgar Hoover. I hate that man. Oh my god, terrible human being.
Yeah. Have you ever read the Anthony Summers biography of Hoover?
I have not.
I'd read that. There's a number of there's questionable things about it, but it's a really entertaining read. If only because
I'll have to read that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear.
I'll probably get really pissed off at J. Edgar Hoover all over again, but I'll read it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's entertaining, though as I say, not particularly. Though there's some question marks over the stuff that's in there, purely because it's clear that Anthony Summers hates J. Edgar Hoover.
Okay, I'll love that then. I'll probably love it. Oh man, I gotta pick that book up now.
There's another biography. This is not of Hoover, but this is of Edwin Stanton, who was Abraham Lincoln's war secretary, and I think it's called Lincoln's Autocrat. And when you're reading it, it's a full dress biography of the man, and it's all the stuff in it is accurate. But it's very clear from page one that the author hates Stanton and takes every opportunity to have a go at him, and it's just really entertaining.
I'll have to pick that up. Hold on, what's the guy's name? Anthony Stanton? Is that what you said?
Anthony Edwin, the biography of Stanton is called Lincoln's Autocrat.
Oh no, I mean the guy who wrote the Hoover.
Anthony Summers.
Anthony Summers. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah, he's. Oh wow, he's still alive. That's cool.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, yep, there it is. I'm like, all right, I'll add that to my always growing to be read list. But I'm like, oh, if he hates that man, I'm gonna love it. It'll feed the dark side, if you will. Going back to the Star Wars reference, it's like I'm gonna love this.
Yeah, one thing I will say about biographies is that not liking the subject of the biography is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it can produce a highly entertaining work. It might not necessarily be the most.
It won't be the most oh man, what's the word?
But, but it will be entertaining.
Won't. There will be some insight alongside the dislike,
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
God, I hate J. Edgar Hoover. Just god awful. I went to the FBI museum like years ago, and I was just like, ugh, man, J. Edgar Hoover, hate that guy. And I was actually talking with a friend of mine about that the other day. I'm like, can a guy with like real selfish motives like does that take away from like him doing good things? And he's like, I'd say no. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I do sometimes think people's motivation should be taken into account,
Yeah. I suppose it depends how much good they do.
I mean, I don't know how much good I don't know how much good J. Edgar Hoover did. I mean, he did do some good, I guess. Though most of the time he just was like, I'm just gonna use, instead of helping people, actually, solving crimes and, making a difference in the world, I'm just gonna blackmail all these politicians. And Martin Luther King Jr., because I'm just an asshole,
Yeah.
Because, you know what? Fuck everyone. It's all about me.
Yeah.
Like, generally, like, J. Edgar Hoover is the type of person I just absolutely despise. Just absolutely greedy for power. And just will steamroll anyone to get it, and actively wants to hold humanity back as a species. So there you go. I hate J. Edgar Hoover a lot.
And he was unique, I think, in the Western world, especially in America. Somebody having that much power. I think the only other person who, at least in his
he didn't even go after the mob because, like, I've heard that they had something on him. Because
that's actually someone's actually brings that up.
Instead of doing something like going after the freaking mob, you're just like, I'm gonna blackmail people. Just fuck you, fuck everyone. Because I just want to show everyone what a gigantic cock I have. I'm gonna blackmail the president. Actually, that's what I'm gonna do. Fuck trying to help people. I'm gonna blackmail people. I'm gonna blackmail him. I'm gonna blackmail the guy who's actually trying to help people.
Yeah.
Because fuck everyone.
You get the same thing with Robert Moses.
I hate that man. I'm sorry.
That's right.
I'm sorry. I'm going on a rant here while you're like explaining about my friend Raph actually was reading a book about that guy Robert Moses. Yeah. I'm like, I actually was kind of joking with him, but I was like, so why are you reading this book about like archaeology? And he's like, it's a good book, man. Like, you should read it. I'm like, I know. Maybe I will. Yeah.
Oh no. I mean, Robert Moses is the bloke in New York. He's the one who built all the buildings in the 30s up until the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
He amassed a huge amount of power, the same way that Hoover did.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it by sort of getting control of various posts across the state of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't get elected to these positions. He was just appointed to them and then held on to them for decades. Yeah. And he used similar tactics to J. Edgar Hoover. And famously, he and FDR really did not get along to the degree that FDR kept sort of trying to interfere with stuff going to New York because he hated Moses that much.
He didn't go to New York because he hated the guy that much? Damn. I'll have to pick that book up at some point. Yeah, there's like a biography of his that's well loved. My friend Raph read it earlier this year. It's called it's like Kingmaker or something like that. Maybe you know the title of it. Do you know
what? Robert Caro, I think, is the author.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name now, but it's a big biography. But I wanted to read it myself at some point, just because of how sort of absurdly villainous and also how powerful he was in New York without being elected to any of the offices.
So this guy who basically was like this like architect basically decided I'm just gonna be like the big wig of New York City in the meantime. Wow, that's crazy. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, and he was the sort of power in New York from essentially the late 20s, early 30s up until he retired in the mid 60s, so for 30 years. When it came to any public public building project in New York, he was the man who said yes or no to it, and you had to in governors and some state officials had to go to him to get anything done.
Wow, what a guy! Again, you could use your powers of architecture to. I don't get it. I don't get it. You could do so much good with your talents. Instead, you decide to be a selfish asshole. Like, come on. Hate it. I hate those people. It's probably why I hate Tywin so much in Game of Thrones. I'm like, you're so talented. You could help all these people. No, you just want to gain more power for yourself. Ugh. I don't know. Anyway, my rant about that involved whatever. Yeah. Anyway, we've been going for 2 hours now, and I don't want to hold you like too long. So I'm probably gonna wrap this up now. But thank you, Arron, for coming on and hanging out with me for a little while. This was fun.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me
on. And as I like to do before the end of these things, if you have any social media, you can feel free to share them. Be shameless.
Well, there's my channel, obviously, and then there's my account on X, which is also Arron Hook. So they're my two social media.
Fair enough. All right. Hope everyone enjoyed this conversation, and until next time.